Welcome back. Dr. Ben Carson is endorsing former President Trump. He did so in Iowa last weekend. The latest Fox News power rankings has the 45th president the clear-cut top contender for the Republican presidential nomination as we head into the Iowa caucuses, which now is just 71 days away. Joining me right now on his endorsement of the 45th president is the former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson is also the founder of the American Cornerstone Institute. Dr. Carson, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Maria. It's always great to be on with you.
Tell us about your endorsement. Thank you. Tell us about your endorsement of President Trump. Why?
Well, I think any objective person recognizes that during the Trump administration and the pre-COVID days, we had a booming economy. We had a secure border. We had energy independence. We had record low unemployment. We had hope for the future. We had respect in the world. And those are good reasons, but there's an even more important reason. On September the 17th, 1787, when Benjamin Franklin came out of that last constitutional convention, he was asked, "Sir, what do we have here? A monarchy or a republic?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." We've kept it for over 240 years, but we're as close to losing it right now as we ever have been, as the enemies of Donald Trump are trying to weaponize our justice system and are destroying our system of checks and balances without looking into the future, without thinking about the implications of that, and recognizing that without those things in place, we become another two-bit banana republic. And this is a serious issue. And this is not a popularity contest. There are some people who say, "I don't like that man. His policies are good, but I don't like him."
Yeah.
They need to stop and think about their children and their grandchildren and the future of this country and what is going to happen and what we are facing and why our system was designed the way it is so that the people could have the final word. Yeah. We cannot allow ourselves to be manipulated into thinking that we hate each other.
Yeah. And one of the things that I believe, and I'm thinking about as you're talking, is this gag order on President Trump. He's the leading candidate. He is being faced with these indictments. He's going to have to testify in New York, and the judge is saying he can't say a word about anything. Jonathan Turley says it's unconstitutional. You say?
Two-bit banana republic. That's exactly the kind of thing that they do, and we cannot stand for it. We have to be able to be the land of the brave, the land of the free. We have to be the home of the brave. We have to be brave and stand up for what we believe in.
Well, I want to talk more about that because I think increasingly the population is. I want to get your take on the support for the 45th president. Quick break, and we'll come back with Dr. Ben Carson right after this. Welcome back. I am back with Dr. Ben Carson. And Dr. Carson, as you know, President Trump is in this New York case this week, and he will likely testify. There's a complaint calling for Trump's New York trial judge's clerk to be disbarred for political donations. I'm wondering what you think people are thinking about all of these indictments and President Trump. The clerk for the New York Justice, Arthur Engoron, appears to have violated judicial rules, preventing officers of the court from making political donations, according to Breitbart. What is your take on that?
Well, my take is that they're clearly doing everything they can to disenfranchise President Trump because they're afraid of him. And there's nothing that they will not consider doing. But the American people are smart enough to recognize what's going on. The reason that he continues to do well in the polls is they know that having an open southern border is an invitation for terrorism and that we're going to suffer the consequences of that.
Right.
They know that continuing to pile debt is going to jeopardize our position as the reserve currency. And when the Chinese gain control of that, they're going to finish the destruction of this nation. But they also know that we have a history, a strong history of courage. Yeah. And that's what it's going to take right now to save our country. People are going to have to be willing to stand up for what they believe.
Some are. Dr. Carson, look at the New York Times this morning saying that Trump is leading Biden in 5 of the critical swing states. He's beating Joe Biden. What are your thoughts on the African-American community today and its support for Donald Trump?
Well, I see a lot more of it starting to occur. There was a time You know, a few years ago when I would go to conservative gatherings and I would only be the only black face there. Now there are lots of black faces, particularly black males, who have looked at some of the things that were done during the previous administration and recognized that those things were beneficial to them, to their communities. So people are starting to think for themselves, and that's what the left doesn't like. They don't like black people to think for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr.
Maria.
Ben Carson. Good to see you, sir.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.